Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Charity Charge Show. This is Grayson Harris, and today we are pleased to be joined by Teresa Stafford Bright. She is the CEO of the Hope and Healing Survivor and Resource Center, and we're really excited to dive both into the incredible impact and mission that they do, and the really challenging work and problems that the community that she supports faces, and some of her philosophies around donor engagement as well. Teresa, I really appreciate you joining today.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about the center and where it's located in the community that you serve?
Yes, thank you. Hope and Healing Survivor Resource Center, we have been in existence since 1974, providing comprehensive services to survivors of sexual violence, domestic violence, and human trafficking in Northeast Ohio, specifically in Summit and Medina counties. We approach our work through a trauma informed lens, ensuring that when a survivor calls our hotline, whether that's at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they are met with a professional who's ready to help them through their crisis. And that's accessing our 24-hour shelter, our counseling services, court advocacy, or when that survivor presents at a hospital after being assaulted and having a forensic medical exam complete, that we can go be there with them at the hospital and help them sort of process what they just experienced. We work throughout the court systems with law enforcement, prosecutors, helping survivors seek their form of justice through those different systems, as well as, we do believe these crimes are preventable. So we're just not responding to them. We are working with our community partners, whether it's educational institutions, K through 12, higher ed, after school programs, just anywhere where humans are basically, where we can get in and talk about healthy relationships, consent. Like if something of this nature does happen to you, how you can disclose that information, who to disclose it to, and how to support a loved one or a family member who may have experienced this. Because we definitely believe it takes a community and we need the community support to effectively respond to interpersonal violence.
What you just described I was really so impressed with whenever I was doing some more research and talking with you in the past, right? It's the immediate need, and really being there and supporting the people that are going through that within their lives, and then also walking them through both the journey of recovery, of healing, right? That healing
Absolutely.
aspect of the name, and then also putting in the work to reduce, right, the impact and the number of this problem, right? Can you talk a little bit about what goes into really that entire aspect? Because I know, especially running a 24/7 hotline and a walk-in resource center, that's quite a bit of a task. Can you speak a little bit more to
Absolutely.
what goes into that?
We have a staff of about 100 individuals, full-time and part-time mix, that are able to meet the needs of survivors in the community. And so that entails having trained licensed clinicians on staff, crisis intervention specialists. They get to understand the law and how to, they're not legal attorneys, but they need to understand the law so they can help support survivors as they navigate those different challenges. And our shelter in Summit County, we hold about 100 beds. And at any point in time, 50% of the clients in the shelter are children. So we need staff that are able to work with kids who have either experienced the violence or who have witnessed the violence. The other thing of it is, we always talk about the delivery of our services, but we also have to maintain operations of these shelters. Like our building is an old nursing home that we was gifted from the city about 10 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago. And the building had to go to a complete renovation. And a lot of our grants that we receive, they help with funding the programs, but not the operational cost of the organization. And so we have to be really mindful of how we tell stories to have impact so the community can support us outside of just the programming that we offer. Because it's expensive to operate our shelter. The utility bill is roughly about $6,000 a month. The price of groceries, because we provide 3 meals a day to 100 plus individuals in our shelter in Summit County. And in our shelter in Medina County, we house about 25 people there. So our costs increased tremendously across the board. So we have to think about not only ensuring the fidelity of our services, but that we are able to maintain the operational cost of being able to provide these services in the community. Because, Grayson, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that our services are absolutely free. Everything is free of charge. We don't believe that survivors should have to pay for their healing as being a victim of a crime. If someone is sexually assaulted, they shouldn't have to pay for the counseling connected to that crime. If someone has been experiencing domestic violence and they don't have nowhere to go in the middle of the night, they shouldn't have to pay in that moment to try to figure out where to go because they're a victim of crime. And so we strongly believe that our services need to maintain free and have low barrier access. And maintaining all that it takes multiple different functions as a leader of the organization, making sure we're hiring the right people, make sure we're measuring our outcomes, make sure we're listening to survivors and centering their needs and how we develop programming for the community. And just not doing like a paintbrush approach to developing our program, that we're developing our program to meet the unique needs of the individuals that we serve collectively.
Really appreciate all of what you just said. And the part that I'd like to narrow in a little bit on is the cost of running the shelter. And you really spoke to the operational cost that's associated with it. And that challenge that nonprofits can oftentimes be unfairly graded on is this ratio of programmatic to operational overhead cost. Whenever depending on the type of nonprofit there is for a good reason quite an operational cost that goes into delivering the services. Can you speak a little bit? You mentioned connecting this story to your local community to offset what the grants aren't able to provide, maybe because that funding is restricted. What really goes into that, and how has it been really speaking to the community and working with them to make sure the doors are able to stay open?
Yeah, so Hope and Healing actually went through a rebranding recently. We are formerly known as the Battered Women's Shelter and the Rape Crisis Center of Summit and Medina Counties, which was two separate nonprofits that worked under the umbrella of the name Hope and Healing. And so, under our current strategic plan, I worked with our board of directors to kind of streamline services. So, we had 3 or 4 different hotlines. We had some brand identity going on, but those names that we were formerly known as the Battered Women's Shelter and the Rape Crisis Center, those were names that were needed back in the 70s when we established. And as we started listening to survivors, listening to the community, we realized that there was some little bit of confusion and we needed to make sure we streamline our services so our messaging was clear to
Mm.
individuals. Instead of leading with the victimization, we started leading with the outcome. Like as a result of working with Hope and Healing Survivor Resource Center, survivors have an opportunity to heal. Survivors have more hope for the future. And some of the data that we are collecting from survivors from our survivor surveys show just that, where 90 some percent of survivors who engage with us have a better feeling of safety and hope for the future. And so it made us start leading with, what is the outcome we want to have when people engage with us instead of just leading with the victimization. So, really helping us tell the story, collecting data that tells the story. When individuals complete up to 12 months of clinical sessions with us, over 80% of those people, PTSD scores decrease tremendously, where it doesn't show that they have PTSD anymore. And so being able to talk to the community about not only the services we provide or the number of people we serve, really speaking to donors and individuals about the impact because we know that if that family goes back into the community and that family is healthier, that mom or dad is healthier, that household is healthier. Therefore, they're able to contribute to their community in a healthier manner. And when we started switching that narrative and really educating the community about restricted dollars and unrestricted dollars, I can remember we started having a conversation at the leadership team. It was like, oh, people are not going to understand that. I was like, well, we educate them. We educate our donors. We educate our funders. We need to start talking to our funders about the fact of needing more unrestricted dollars to help with operational costs. Because if we're not able to operate the back room of the organization, the front door of the organization won't remain open. And so it really shifted my mindset as a leader about how I need to engage with donors in the community and being brave and talking about the things that, we're not talking about our utility bills to donors typically. We're not sharing with them this tremendous increase of our electric bill. But if we don't have this electricity running in the building, we can't serve people.
Yeah.
And if we're not able to replace the HVAC through our maintenance prevention plan in a few years, then we're not able to serve. And so, really fundraising and having those conversations with potential donors in that manner has increased our ability to bring unrestricted dollars into the organization. For instance, there's a club in Akron, and we have a really great relationship with the Civic. organization. And we were talking to them about this. Like, we have washer and dryers in our shelter in Summit County. Those washer and dryers, we started having the maintenance people coming in almost every few weeks. They're in there. And so we need to replace them. They haven't been replaced in 10 years. And you're talking about over 500 people using these washers and dryers every single day for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that people have access to clean clothes and they don't necessarily have to go out in the community because it's not safe for everyone to be out in the community as they're actively fleeing. Have a conversation with this club about, how we need to replace these dryers and washers and how we don't typically have funds in our budget to actually replace them because a lot of the grants that come in for the cost of programming. And I see this as a programming need, but sometimes our funders don't see it that way. But through that conversation and educating this group, next thing you know, within weeks, they send us a check in to purchase new washers and dryers.
That's
And so
incredible.
it's the stories we have to tell and how we tell those stories to help people understand that washer and dryers are crucial to the psychological safety and the health and well-being of individuals in the shelter. It's not a nice to have. And so I just think it's how we're telling our stories, what message are we leading with, how do we uplift survivor stories ethically in those moments to make people understand. So I have been okay with shifting a little bit of my conversation away from we need funding to pay for a new counselor, or we need funding for another advocate, or we need funding to do youth services. We need funding to be able to run the organization appropriately. And if funders can't trust organizations to do that, then that's a different conversation. But we need to be able to really trust that organizations are going to use the funds in the best manner possible in order to make sure the bottom line is met. We are running a
Yeah.
business and that business is providing a service and there are so many parts of how that business needs to run in order for it to be successful. And it's more than just program.
I really appreciate everything that you shared. I'd like, for our nonprofit audience that's listening in and they're looking to maybe have these conversations, but they're feeling some of those, challenges that you went through as you shifted some of this messaging, right? How are the donors going to react? How is education going to go? What about this kind of a new approach maybe surprised you about these conversations that you've been having with donors? In the sense of how it maybe re-engaged them or opened up the door to, the possibilities and really increasing these unrestricted revenue that you're able to now use on the operational side.
Yeah, so you know what? For years, I was told that that's not what funders want to do. They want to fund programming. They don't want to hear that conversation. It will close the door. And actually, I think it has opened the door wider. It has really opened the door wider because when people give to an organization, they're just not giving for that moment. They're thinking about the sustainability of this program. They don't want their dollars just to be short lived for an organization. So, if we're talking about sustainability and really helping donors understand the need for unrestricted dollars, it helps them understand how they are helping with the sustainability of the organization for long term impact in the community. Like, if they have desire to end homelessness, a desire to end domestic violence, a desire to end children who are exposed to violence, then we need to have those long term strategy conversations with them and not just think about what's in front of us right now today. And it's been a shift, but it has been, like I said, I think the door is open wider for those people to engage with our organization than it has been in the past.
Is incredible. And as you look to go into the future, how is that going to continue to evolve for you in terms of this communication strategy with your donors?
Well, it's changing too because we are implementing or launching this year our giving circles. It's a concept that's not new, but it's new to us at the organization. It's not new at all. One of the things is that we know that people want to have a bigger impact. People are coming together as communities, as families, as organizations. And want to say, instead of me just giving this organization $100 a year, how about 10 of us give this organization $100 a year? How about, we try to set a goal of giving this organization $10,000 and our group can collectively help this organization obtain that. And so it's a way for us to engage with people who are new to the philanthropy community, people who are young professionals, people who may not have, big bank accounts to give a lot of money at one time, but collectively they have a group of family or friends that can. And so it's bringing people into the circle, creating more ambassadors, creating more opportunities for ways for people to give to our organization. And so we're hoping it creates energy. It could be a book club, it could be a youth group, it could be a church that wants to create a giving circle inside of the church and give to the community. And so we are creating and launching this giving circle during our annual Women's History Day Month tea that we have, which will focus on in Ohio right now. Unfortunately, the children are still forced into marriage at times. So we have some legislative policy that's going to be connected to that, a call to action. And then we're going to ask for people to create giving circles within their circles of influence to help us be able to maintain free services in the community.
I I'd love I have a couple questions I have on the giving circles. Traditionally, small reoccurring, donors, it can be hard to really kind of feel that buy-in, right? Because maybe
Hmm.
you're only giving $5 a month. With the giving circle, where it's kind of you as a group, you may only still be contributing that $5 a month, but collectively, it feels like you're now getting this, check, right? That's has
Absolutely.
uh, a much bigger impact. So I'd love to understand a little bit about your thought or your approach in terms of how that increases, and then also with some of the tax law changes in the sense of being able to deduct on a standard deduction as well going forward for the vast majority of people that are doing the standard deductions, how that's also impacting some of your communications with some of your new donors.
Yes, so we're still providing that language according to the law that we need to provide and educating them. We really lean on our foundations. So we have a couple foundations in the community for donor advised funds. They really help us in that space with those higher given donors to provide that level of education to them. But part of this giving circle, once people join the giving circle, we are going to invite, the foundation folks in to kind of talk to them about, the new tax laws, really understanding why giving is important and if they want to take their giving circle and turn it into a donor advised fund and what that may look like for them. And so some of our communication with these individuals is really helping them understand just what you said in the beginning. I can give $5 a month. I don't know if that's going to help that organization, but I know if I find 25 friends and we're all giving $5 a month, it just gives a different feeling that they have a larger impact on an organization. And Gracie, you just triggered me to thinking about something where I've been also talking to donors in our community where I know that some of our donors, they will pick like 3 or 4 organizations to give maybe 2,000 here, 2,000 there, 2,000. And that's great. And it helps the organizations. I'm not going to turn away any money, right? Any type of giving that somebody wants to have. But I also want to talk to the donors, and I've had some success in this and asking donors, like, what are some of the issues that really matter to you? What are some of the issues that matter? And one of our donors talked to me about, our family advice fund, we want to support children, we want to support mental health, we want to support people who are unhoused, we want to support people, kids in education. And one of the things I took that opportunity and said, at Hope and Healing, we actually do all of that. We help people who are currently experiencing homelessness as a result of actively fleeing domestic violence. We work with children who experience trauma, who have witnessed trauma, and a lot of kids who come into our shelter, they are disconnected from the educational system. So we're working with these kiddos to help get them caught up. We're working with individuals who experience mental health issues as a result of experiencing violence. So a lot of the things that your family is focused on, our organization responds to that collectively. And I said, I'm not trying to tell you how to, divvy up your funds for your family, but the impact you can have by giving more to our organization is greater.
Mm.
And lo and behold, their donation to our organization went from $5,000 to $25,000 for the last couple of years. And it was just a matter of educating and really getting to know the interests of this donor and their family members and educating them on what we do as a whole instead of just thinking about us as this one little program over here. So I believe just having these tough conversations, sometimes you're going to get a no, and that's okay, but you had the conversation,
Yeah.
you planted the seed, and just water the seed as you continue to develop the relationship, as you continue to mend that relationship. And maybe that seed will grow into something bigger for your organization later on.
That was a great thing to share. Thank you so much. And as we As we come to the end of our conversation, how can our audience get involved in the work that yourself and the center is providing for your community out there?
Hey, so you can reach out to us. You can find us online. Just Google Hope and Healing Survivor Resource Center. And if you are a survivor, because we know the survivors are everywhere, our emergency hotline is 330-374-1111. But you can visit our hotline, and there are multiple ways to get involved, either through volunteerism, donation, of course, setting up those reoccurring payments. Hey, start a giving circle. Giving circles could be anywhere in the world and can still help support us. So, Grayson, yeah, or you could just reach out to me directly. I will be more than interested to have a conversation with folks about how they can support the organization going forward.
You so much for coming on and sharing more about the work, the really important work that yourself
Thank you.
and your organization is providing out there, and then also some of your philosophies, right, around how to engage your community and make sure they understand and are educated into that important work, so you're getting that buy-in to create the sustainable impact that everybody's looking to achieve. Teresa,
Thank
thanks for coming on.
thank you for having me.